Hi, this is a conversation with Lee Wang, who is a quantitative trader slash data scientist at a crypto hedge fund in London. Lee has a PhD from University College of London. After working few years in academia, he moved to industry, worked as a data scientist for a few years, and then moved to as a data science consultant for a few years, and then currently he is working as a quantitative trader at a crypto hedge fund. So I've discussed with him a lot of things. If you like this interview, please let me know. If you want me to invite more such industry professionals and interview them on this channel, please let me know in the comment section. What's the major difference you saw when you moved from traditional quant to working as a quantitative trader in a crypto fund?
Well, honestly, I think the major difference is for me, I believe that moving from the traditional quant space to a quantitative trader is kind of like a career step up.
Okay.
Because as a quant trader, I have a book to manage. So for me, I think it's kind of like let's say, a step.
You are responsible for profit and loss.
Yes.
Okay.
So in that case, for me, I think it's kind of like a one step up towards, the portfolio manager. That's the case.
Okay. But I'm very curious to know whether you can even use the quantitative techniques, statistical or machine learning techniques to predict prices in crypto market, because crypto market is very volatile and you do not have any underlying value of the asset, actually, unlike your stocks or bonds or other assets. Mm-hmm. How do you sort of use these techniques to predict prices in crypto?
Well, let's say I understand your concern. I think the concern is from the very basic portfolio management series. So for very basic, let's say in a traditional market, we want to construct a portfolio and you want to diversify your risk. What you do is you have some money allocated to equity, some money allocated to bonds, fixed income stuff. Right. And in that case, because traditionally we think they are negatively correlated. Right. So in that case, equity is dropping, then basically bonds is going to increase the price. So it's kind of like, let's say, it's kind of like there is a very typical trading strategy called risk purity. Basically, I think the Bridgewater. Yes, Bridgewater is using this, and this kind of trading strategy is very useful, especially during the recession period. Let's say during the 2008 to 2010. Yes, that's the case. And for the crypto, basically we can't do that because let's say all the crypto coins, they are strongly correlated. So we can't do something like select the different underlines and make sure they are very little correlated. And in other case, I can diversify my risk.
Right.
In this case, it's not possible. So what I did is I did a very alternative ways. So I developed multiple trading strategies. So in that case, each trading strategy, they have different holding period. So some trading strategies, they have the holding period for something like 1 second or second level. Some trading strategies, they have a holding period, for example, intraday level. Mm-hmm. And some trading strategy, they has a holding period, say, weekly level. So in that case, I hope I can diversify some risk of this because, for the very volatile asset, let's say you have, let's say the volatility of the spot rate is quite high. Yeah. However, if we zoom out and to see something like a daily and to see something like weekly, maybe the volatility is not that high. So that's the basic story of, let's say, basic theory of my understanding of diversifying risk in the crypto portfolio.
How is your education helping you in your current job?
I think basically I think the difference for me before PhD education and after the PhD education is I learned a way to be a self-learner. Okay. And to find the knowledge and to solve the problem creatively. and also see a problem from different angles. Okay. So before I probably just see something and try to solve something from one angle. And however, after I tried to see things in a different angles and to get the conclusion and to find a solution different from someone else. And and also to understand the knowledge and put the different pieces together and to be the solution. That's the case.
What are the skills that you can take from being a data scientist at a crypto fund to other kinds of jobs, right? Whether it's in banking or the more traditional quantitative research or traditional data science jobs, can somebody move from these jobs, the one that you are doing, to other fields? For example, being a quant in an investment banks or being a data scientist at an e-commerce company like Amazon. Is that possible? Do you have the experience people doing that?
Yeah, I know some people jumped from the bank to Google, jumped from bank to Amazon. And I even know some people jumped from the quant side to economist, to be an economist.
Really? Okay.
Yes, and also the reverse way. Okay. I know people, they studied economy and they jumped to the quant world. So it's kind of like, that's what I say. The fundamental is very important. So for example, when you touch a model, try to understand the assumptions, model limitation, and how they derive all the tests and all the things.
If someone is a student now doing master's or PhD, what suggestions you would like to give to them if he or she wants to become a data scientist or a quant in a trading firm?
I think the thing is to do an internship. At least you understand your position in the market.
Okay.
Because when you do an internship, try to apply first. When you try to apply the internship, you understand. Let's say you applied about 100 companies, and 10 companies they ask you to the next, select you to the next step. You understand how the competition of the market, and you understand what kind of question they are going to ask you. Even you are not successful in the internship, that's fine. But you understand how the process is, and it can help you a lot for preparing your next job application. And also for the technical side, I can say is understand the fundamental of the what you say in your CV. Yeah. Because we don't ask you a lot of secret. We don't ask you what your trading strategy is or something like that. We don't want to ask you because we
basic stuff, right? More theoretical stuff.
Yes. Okay. Because we hate people to ask me, that's the case, and so we ask fundamental stuff, and we don't ask you too much about your research or something.
A few very basic questions, but someone who has never worked and just a fresher, I would like to ask questions, right? Okay, what kind of remuneration money one can expect as a fresher, somebody very fresh to the job market? Somebody who has a PhD from Imperial College of London, UCL, or any top university in the UK or in US, what kind of a salary he can expect as a quantitative trader?
Well, if that's a very junior people that graduate, and I think for the first year, he or she can expect entry level base salary. I'm just talking about base salary is about 80k plus.
Whoa, 80k plus GBP.
Yes, that's the base salary.
£80,000. That's not bad at all, right?
Yes, and it's higher than just a quant analyst in the bank. In the buy side, it's you can talk about 80k plus, and then the bonus is kind of like 50% of your base salary you can expect. And then, however, the base salary is growing very fast. Yeah, something like after 5 years experience, you are expecting something like at least a double.
Really, like 150k or 160k?
160, yes. Oh. And some good quant trader, if you have your very unique skills and very unique trading strategies, I think you are expecting the base salary to be something over 200.
Oh, really? Okay. That's
Yeah.
huge, right?
And the bonus is much bigger than your base salary after you have something like a 3 years, 5 years tracking record.
Okay.
It's we are talking about you are managing your book,
Yeah.
and we are talking about the profit cut.
Okay.
So if it's an asset management company, we are talking about something between 5% to 8% profit cut.
Or 5 to 10% profit of the P&L, right?
Yes. If that's the asset management. However, if that's a proper trading company, so basically they are trading their own money, not from the external customers.
Yeah.
We are thinking about something about 20% of the P&L cut overall, because it's always about the stairs. So, for example, if your return is about 0 to 10%, you have zero P&L cut, or maybe just 1% P&L cut. However, 10 to 20%. Probably you have something like about 20%, 10% cut, and 20 to 50 or something. If you have more than 50, probably you have the P&L cut for more than 50%. So that's that's the kind of case.
Okay,
so
that means the higher the profit the company makes, or your department, your fund makes, the higher percentage of
not your department, but you.
Okay.
Because you are in charge of your own book. That's the case.
I see. That means if you are managing the portfolio.
Yes, you are managing a portfolio. And every quant trader is managing a portfolio. Junior people is a different story. As a junior people, for your first year, you don't manage the book. You just gradually take over some kind of like a sidekick work.
How about the working hours? Like I've heard that people work long hours in these companies. Is that true?
No, I do say definitely no. For the banks, it's I think a front office quant is working something like from, let's say, 8:30 a.m. to something like 6 p.m. like normal people. Okay. And for in the hedge fund, for a quant trader, depending on your market, I think for me, I am for the working day, I am the 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. guy. I am totally against this kind of like non-hour working, because we needed to make a decision, a very tough decision. Many times in one day, and non-hour is going to make me very tired, and it's going to make me lose money. That's not a good idea for the company, for me. And however, for my cases, I need to be special because I'm working in a crypto fund. Crypto is trading 24/7. And there is no Christmas Day, no New Year's Day, this kind of thing. So for me, sometimes I probably pop up to work during the weekend because it's my portfolio. I'm in charge of clients' money. And it's kind of like, when the company hands the portfolio to you, it's kind of like a responsibility for you and for people and for the clients. That's the thing. And also it's, building the reputation is quite important, because the competition in this business is very high. Let's say if you lose money for 1 quarter, probably you have some kind of explanation. For the second quarter, you could have an explanation. However, the company would like to just kick you out because you're losing money. The high reward means high risk.
Exactly. That's high reward and high risk.
Yes. That's also in this business. That's why
you could make a lot of money, but you could also be fired at any time. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you that's why we are talking about. That's why quantitative trader is more popular, because quantitative. Let's say for every trade, we have the part of the gambling part. Right. It's just a proportion. So for the quantitative trader, we try to use a quantitative technique to limit our proportion of gambling. Yeah. That's the case.
Do you guys also use algorithm to scrap, information from the web, for example, from Twitter or from other social media? Like what's the sentiment of the overall population? Do you guys also do work on that kind of stuff?
Yes, we call, and what I said before, we use the satellite data. It's kind of like one of the alternative data.
Okay.
And some data we use is the Google Analytic data because
Okay.
we believe there is a strong correlation between the people search crypto, search
Okay.
Bitcoin, and to the price of the Bitcoin and the crypto.
Right.
And then we also use this kind of like keyword data in the Twitter, in the Facebook as well. So we
Yeah.
just search the appearance of this kind of like words, and this kind of like thing is our, our say our interest. So things like that.
Okay, so that's also one area where you also
Yes.
build models.
So
And
when you try to build a model, let's say it's a parametric model,
right.
and there is for me there is a thing called a factor pools. So factor pools including all the factors I used or I try to use. For example, and what I said, the macroeconomic signals, the market signals, and also this kind of alternative data signals. So that's the factor pools. I pick the factors from there. Let's say they are this factor that I treated them as independent factors. And I try to do the regression for my dependent factor. That's the case.
I see. Okay, that's cool. All right, I think we have covered all the questions, and thanks for answering all the questions.